or intrinsic qualities such as like the way you act, your dress, or how you speak, depending on who.
Question.
Do you act differently when you're around different groups of friends?
What she meant to say was, do I act differently when I'm with white people than when I'm with Korean/Asian, being that I'm mixed Korean American? The answer to that question is yes, I do. When I'm with white people, I have a lot more swag. We talk a lot about more politically U.S. related culture things, and I try to inform them on the Korean culture, if you will, to support their ignorance. And then when I'm with my Asians, I do the exact same thing against the white culture. I play the fence role, if you will. And also, we talk a lot more about JDM cars, because Asians like to drive faster.
And do you ever feel different when you're around Asians? Like, do you ever feel hated on?
I do. They hate on me because I'm a mixed breed, because I have 50-50, best of both worlds.
Do whites hate on you?
Whites hate on me because I got all this going for me.
And what are you eating there, Whitey?
She's eating the original Asian rice, cooked to a steam with seaweed, good for joints and bones.
Well, there were two worlds that I grew up in, and people would say, well, of course there were two worlds. There was a black world and a white world. Actually, that's not what I'm talking about. There was the world at home and then the world outside of home when I was growing up. And for instance, from a very young age, I knew that my mom and my dad didn't look the same. So much so that when I would meet people that I didn't know when I was very young, they would introduce themselves to me, and I would say, hi, I'm Sheldon, and this is my mom, she's white. And so from a very young age, I was aware of these things, and we actually still laugh and joke about that, till this day. But at home, it was always having a black father and a white mother was natural to me because that's all I knew. And so because of that, it caused me to really be more open, number one, about what was normal and natural. And also, it caused some difficulties for me with either friends, early relationships, and just kind of trying to figure out where I fit in the outside world, because there was never a discussion of race in the home. It was never about, now look here son, you have a black dad and a white mom, so you're going to be faced with this and this and this. It was just, this is who you are. There was never really a discussion about it. So it wasn't necessarily identifying in the home that was a struggle. There were some interesting times, some learning experiences when, for instance, some of the first times when I met my dad's side of the family, and they asked me questions like, why do you sound so white? And for me, I had no idea what that meant.
Does your environment change your extrinsic or intrinsic qualities, such as the way you act, dress, or speak?
The way that I dress and speak, not so much, but in Indian culture, like, females are expected to be more like reserved and pretty much like quiet, just like more conservative. So I've noticed, like, when I was in India, for example, and when I'm around my Indian family, I'll be more conservative, I'll be a little quieter, but I don't mind that. It's not like I'm changing who I am. It's just that I'm just a little bit more careful about what I say. Yeah, sometimes about what I wear too around them, and just how I like carry myself. Around my Hispanic family, I feel like I'm just more myself, and I don't really have to watch what I do. So.
And then lastly, is there a particular ethnicity you prefer when you date?
When I started dating, I pretty much only dated Indian guys because I like, and my purpose in that was that I didn't really learn about my culture from my father, and so I kind of wanted to get to know people from that culture. So like, most of my boyfriends ended up being Indian, and that was good. But now I'm dating a Hispanic guy, so I guess he's like probably the only one who's not Indian that I've ever dated. So, but I think within my race, I'd like date. I don't think I'd date outside my race, just because I kind of want to, because I'm already like mixed, I don't want to just mix my kids up more and then they won't have like, because it's hard to identify, like when you're multiracial, it's hard to identify with just one, like, and if they're like 3 different races, it's just like I feel like it's harder for them to have like get an identity. So
Okay. Thank you.
So how does your dating change?
From Philippines and here
Yeah.
in the States. Well, here in the States, I don't know a lot of Filipino girls. I mean, I don't want to say that I only like Filipino girls, but in the Philippines, I date differently just because the discrimination there is by class and like by how wealthy you are, and my family is more of like upper middle class, I'd say, and like when I was growing up, I had like maids and drivers and stuff, and I just know that like for instance in the Philippines, if I dated someone that was like a maid, my mom would like disown me, like she would definitely not approve. But let's say like here in the States, like I found someone attractive and she worked as a salesman, it would be fine because it's
So it's
different
more
here
so like the position in their jobs or their status versus their ethnicity.
Yeah.
Okay.
But personally, you don't feel like any pull or any preference for Filipino girls or the culture?
Or a Hispanic girl or even a Chinese
Chinese.
girl.
Well, I guess with Filipino girls, I could say maybe a little bit preferably, just because I can identify with them more. But it's not like I only date Filipino girls. It's more of who I find attractive.
Okay, so being Korean and Korean American, do you prefer to date a specific race over the other?
Bruce Lee must find Linda Lee.
Linda Lee. Now, what race is Linda Lee over here?
Brown guy. American. Native American.
Now, do you prefer to only date Native Americans?
If they look like this, then yeah.
Have you ever tried dating Asian girls?
No.
No.
They remind me of my mom.
Back up.
I know that I do. As far as relationships go, or interacting or dating, I found that through a lot of my relationships, the majority of people that I've dated, the majority of women that I've dated has been white women, and I think that's because growing up my mom was white and I always saw that as a natural thing.